Big Papi getting in, which I thought he was going to get in, I go, okay. If he wouldn't have got in, I'd say, okay. Same with Bonds and Clemens. I'm fine with them getting in. The fact that they didn't, I understand why some voters didn't put them in, even though I disagree with those voters. However, to me, it's very hypocritical because there's the same specter around Big Papi. Now, it's not as clear as Clemens and Bonds.
He did test positive.
Correct.
Bonds never really did. They just found evidence based on their investigation. But Ortiz did test positive.
And so that's my whole thing. David Ortiz is in. Do you know why he's in over Bonds and Clemens? Because
nice.
people
he's
like
nice.
him.
Yeah.
Because he's Big Papi. Because at every All-Star game, he was hugging everybody during the Home Run Derby. He was doing interviews. And, oh, by the way, during the Boston bombing, after that, he took the mic and said, this is our effing city.
Dude.
And everybody loved him 10 times more. That is why Big Papi is in, and Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens aren't. Barry Bonds, unlikable. Barry Bonds lied. Barry Bonds' trainer had to go to prison. So, again, he did a few more things in trying to cover up what was found about him. But to me, it's hypocritical because Big Papi's in because folks like him. And it's the same target on his back of PEDs as Clemens and Bonds.
Okay, so Bonds never tested positive. Ortiz did. You look at any metric, as good a player as Ortiz was, he's not near the player that Bonds was. So it is confusing why one guy gets the nod just because he was nice to the media and remembered first names and gets guys. I get all that. That should have nothing to do with the vote, right, when you get down to it. Now, I understand if someone's going to keep out all the steroid guys. My view has changed over the years. When it first came out, I wanted to hold them accountable. I was shocked. I was hurt for the game. And then over the years, you realize that that playing field that wasn't level at all because of the cheating was kind of level because so many guys were doing it. Also, I came to believe the fact that if there were a pill that would get me on network television and it was illegal, I would probably, when I was that age, take that pill. And as I told you, I know guys in the game who I'm friendly with who were just journeymen, who were not trying to hit 50 homers, but were trying to rehab a bad knee or some injury, and the steroids actually helped them recover so they could do more rehab and they could get 6-8 years in the league and extend their pension. Yeah. So based on all that, I think if I were voting, I would probably say maybe it's time to let those guys in. Now, the other thing you read about a lot is Pete Rose. Mm-hmm. And while I'm sympathetic to Pete Rose, okay, I do think it's a different thing, and it's changed now. And maybe it's time to revisit Pete Rose. You have to put it in context. When Pete Rose was caught gambling, there was no partnerships between casinos and betting sites the way there are in every single major sport. Okay, back then they would have in every locker room, in every clubhouse, betting on sports, is like the major sin you could do against the sport. It's not comparing it to if someone goes out and murders someone. I get that, but this was the ultimate sin you could commit against your own sport. Well, now every team has some sort of partnership with a betting site or a casino. So to me, that sort of changes the severity of that sin. So maybe it's time to revisit everything.
Yeah, I don't think it changes Pete Rose as much, even though I would put him in. Still, nowadays, even though you have a sponsorship with all these sports books, you're not able to bet on your own team. You're not able to bet on baseball.
But that's what made it so shocking. I'm just saying the context is different. And to be honest with you, Pete also violated the agreement he had with baseball where he signed a deal where he wasn't going to plead guilty nor say he was innocent, and then immediately went out and said he was innocent.
And here's the difference also to me with David Ortiz as you're comparing them to Bonds and Clemens. A lot of folks, me included, if I had a vote, I would think about the fact, and a lot of people have wrote about this, were these guys Hall of Famers before performance-enhancing drugs? You would say yes. Most would say yes to Bonds, yes to Clemens. Now, Big Papi's test was 2003. That was his first year with the Red Sox. And
he wasn't Big Papi before that. He wasn't.
Right, with the Twins. I remember David Ortiz with the Twins. Good player. He wasn't Big Papi. He wasn't 40 homers MVP. The year before, he was 20 homers and 75 RBIs. And then, basically, he goes to Boston, and he's an all-star and a top-5 MVP for the next 5 years or so.
Did he look different, like optic-wise, his body build?
He was always a big guy,
He was always big.
But my point is more so, if you're also using that argument, Bonds and Clemens were Hall of Famers potentially before they used PEDs, Big Papi wasn't. He was not. So to me, it's just hypocritical because we all know people are putting Big Papi in because they like him, because he's fun. He's on TV now.
Yeah.
He's throwing the money around on the desk at the World Series. He said this is our effing city, which everybody cheered for after the Boston bombing. People love him. People don't like Bonds. That's very hypocritical to me.
He likes Hot Take Central.
Loves Hot Take
Central. That's still, look, voting for the Hall of Fame, it isn't whether or not democracy will fail or survive. You know, they're bigger issues. I understand. I love baseball, so it is somewhat important to me. But that's the only thing that gets me. Like, I understand you cast your vote as best you can. But if one steroid guy gets in and the other guys don't, let's face it, the best player by far is Bonds. And he's not in. And even though there was evidence he did it, and he never tested positive, the other guy did. I can't get past that.
What do you think, Nate?
Well, let's face it. This is now the baseball writers' version of reality when it comes to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Well, it's a joke. This is what America would look like if we lived in the PC beta world of baseball writers.
What is beta again? What is that again?
There's alpha and beta.
Felines.
Okay.
This is what happens when you live in a beta world of baseball writers. Because apparently they have so much integrity, they've never done anything wrong in their life, that, my goodness, we have to now go by the standard of baseball writers when it comes to putting people in the Hall of Fame. If you were to pull players, coaches, managers, whatever, of 4 guys, Schilling, Clemens, Bonds, and Pete Rose, I would guess the overwhelming majority of them would say, yes, put them in. And yet you've got the baseball writers who are upholding the integrity of the game. Reminds me of the George Carlin skit. In baseball, they just want to go home. You know, it's a joke. These people are joking. Nobody in their right mind.
Back then you weren't mad?
Wait a second.
At the steroid, back when it happened? I mean, you're not that young.
It was amazing.
So when you found out that they cheated, you weren't outraged.
It saved the game.
So you
Baseball
were fine
with it.
with
Baseball
it.
was a dying breed.
You were fine with it?
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't. But my views have changed as I've gotten more information and put it in what I feel is a better context about how many guys are breaking the rules. Like what Sosa and McGuire did saved the game, and it was exactly what they needed. And Bonds brought all kinds of excitement. It was fun to watch, too. In hindsight, when you find out that they violated the rules and you thought that they were the outliers, I think the outrage was warranted.
Okay, well, real quick.
Beta writers.
Schilling, beta writers.
Beta writers.
Schilling never was accused of PEDs, correct?
Right.
Okay, so he got left out because I guess they didn't like his politics or something like that, which is a shame. So they're bringing character.
And they didn't believe his bloody sock story.
Gotcha. So just real quick, and then I'll shut up. But if anybody in their right mind, they elected.
Let's not put Schilling like Bonds deserves to be in a lot more than Schilling does.
But
right?
I'm just going to use 2 examples. Okay. So let's look at they elected Mike Mussina, right? 2 years ago.
Right.
Okay, if you were going to have a Game 7 of the World Series and you had to choose between Clemens, Schilling, or Mike Mussina to start the game, nobody is picking Mussina. Nobody is.
That's true.
Okay. If you were
probably pick Clemens,
you would probably go Clemens, Schilling.
Wouldn't even be close.
Postseason?
Yeah.
I think I might go Schilling.
I haven't looked at his postseason numbers, but just based on body of work, I'd go Clemens.
Nobody's going Mussina. Secondly, if you were going to have a lineup and you had to choose between Harold Baines and Alan Trammell or Bonds and Pete Rose, nobody is choosing Alan Trammell.
Take Trammell off that.
Why?
I'm just kidding.
Is he from Toledo?
I grew up watching the Tigers.
Yeah, he once drove through Toledo.
No one is picking Harold Baines and Alan Trammell over Bonds and Pete Rose. So what you have is a watered-down version of the Hall of Fame because you're not recognizing the best players to ever don the uniform.
And do you think Pete Rose is in a different category? Or you just say let them all in.
Huh?
Would you say Pete Rose is in too? Like, regardless of what they did, let them all in based on performance.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So where do we draw the line then? Like does Ryan Braun get in too then? I'm just trying to get a feel.
I don't even know if Ryan Braun is a Hall of Famer.
He doesn't have the numbers.
He's I think like a sub 300 though. He's like 298 or something.
No one's clamoring for Braun to be in the Hall of Fame.
No, I'm just saying. Well, no, I agree with everything that Nate said, and
I would assume that if he thinks everyone's in, if Braun was worthy, which he probably isn't, then he would be
borderline
in
though. He's probably closer than you think.
I don't think he's borderline though.
Seriously?
But why? I mean, because of steroids. If he's saying every steroid guy should get in, are you questioning whether or not Braun, statistics wise, deserves to be in, or are you saying
just letting people in that take steroids? I agree that it should be all or nothing, and it's a bad look that they gave it to Ortiz because he was just as guilty as the rest of them. I think all of them shouldn't be in. That's just my personal opinion. I just think they all cheated. None of them should be in. So I know I was just asking.
I thought you were saying that Braun should be in.
No. I'm just
even if he didn't do steroids.
He has
that
his protein shake today.
I am happy that Scott Rolen's trajectory keeps going up, which is awesome. And I understand the people that think he's borderline, but to me, he's a transformative defensive player. You know, I think 8 Gold Gloves. I mean, the numbers are 300 homers, 8 Gold Gloves. There's him and Mike Schmidt. I mean, it's elite company, and I understand injuries kind of slowed him down at the end. His numbers would have been much better if he didn't have that shoulder issue. But I have that same thing with Jim Edmonds. Like, if you're a transformative defensive player and your offensive numbers may be considered borderline, then you're in. I don't think we value defense enough. Like, Jim Edmonds offensively is good enough to be a Hall of Famer, and he was the best defensive center fielder of his time. I feel the same way about Rolen.
And oh, by the way, I like Big Papi. I'm fine with him being in.
Yeah.
But let's not pretend about the reasons why he's in. Okay, guess what? Gary Sheffield's another player that nobody really liked. He was ornery. He was ornery, as my dad likes to call it. Look up Gary Sheffield's numbers. They will wow you. They're so much better than I even expected in terms of on-base and slug. And you just brought up something very interesting, too. David Ortiz, who, by the way, belongs in my opinion, he didn't even carry a glove to the field in the last 10 years of his career. As great of a hitter as he was, the man barely ever played defense. So think about that. I mean, for a while there, we were not putting in the great DHs, right? Edgar Martinez, that was the big debate. So folks like Rolen, I think we appreciate them more after the fact. And then you could tie this into Jim Edmonds falling off the ballot after 1 year is a travesty. In terms of a baseball Hall of Fame vote, that's a travesty.
I agree.
For a man that was probably right up there as the best defensive center fielder of that generation, or right up there at a position that really matters.
He clearly was the best of his generation.
Well,
you could say
with
guys
Griffey,
are with him.
Okay.
But I use that word, and I don't use it lightly, like transformative. You know, like he defined defense for that position, and his offensive numbers were gaudy. Same with Rolen before the shoulder injury kind of sidetracked his offensive productivity. He was a dominant offensive player who was the best at his position defensively to the point of being the guy who sort of wrote the book for his generation, defensive third baseman. Those guys deserve to be in.
And I wasn't trying to take a dig at Edmonds, but I do think you can, for his generation, and now he was in the National League with the Cardinals, but with Griffey, with Torrey Hunter, I think there's definitely a conversation. You had 3 really elite center fielders.
Let me hit this Bert O'Reilly Cutlery text line. Where Andy just texted me. He goes, "You have no idea what the hell they're talking about, do you? Quit bothering me, ass."
What do you think, though?
Well, I don't. No,
Do you care about PED guys?
Hell no. No, I want there to be a steroid league. I told you that.
They should just have a steroid Hall of Fame.
I want a
honestly.
mutant league with a bunch of steroids. And I was going to ask you this too. And we got to get the text line, and we're going to go to break. But even like organizations, HGH, which helps you like heal. It's not making your forehead bigger like Bonds. It's not making you. It just makes you heal. Like, why wouldn't everybody come together and be like, this is good for the players? It prolongs their career, and we get more value out of them. We're paying them $22 million.
Do you know that HGH among actors and the Hollywood crowd is rampant?
Oh, yeah. You look young.
But it's prescribed by doctors, so it's not illegal. I think it was Stallone that was busted overseas. He was traveling. He had like a whole
syringes and stuff.
Yeah, a whole satchel with the human growth hormone. I don't know enough about it, though I seem smart enough to have been a doctor and gone to medical school. I'm not, so I don't know. But I have read that there are negative side effects with human growth hormone. My thing is, if it's legal and it's safe, I'm okay with it. And there are times, too, that players get prescribed stuff in the rehab process that otherwise wouldn't be kosher because you kind of need that to, if it's prescribed by a doctor.
Is that a dumb question to ask, though? Like, is it valuing your player?
Not at all.
The only dumb question is the question never asked.
But look,
I knew that.
You guys just made a great point. Now, do I want these guys? Yes. Do I want these guys to do something to their body that has negative long-term effects? Absolutely not. This is also entertainment. So if there's something that doctors are prescribing, look, we've read stories. You have these rock stars who are 65, and they're coming to town. Whatever you need to do, whether it's HGH or a testosterone shot, and then you can rock an oil change, a transfusion.
Yep.
If you can rock till you're 70 and crowd surf,
80.
and again, if that's not hurting you long term, that's entertainment. Sports
You're already
is entertainment. 80. Again, I don't want folks to be injecting themselves in the butt with horse steroids like in the 80s of the NFL and college football. Maybe Cam does. But again, I would think that if you had doctors prescribing you the proper levels of HGH, I would think these guys could probably play longer, and the lasting long-term effects are probably not that bad.
Well, look at Mick Jagger from the Rolling Stones. He's doing that, and so it's like, when's it going to affect him? When he's 100? He's flying around, dancing around for 4 hours straight.
Do
Do
you know that one of the things that Jose Canseco said early on, when everyone thought he was crazy, and he is crazy, but he said that there's no proven medical evidence that even with steroids, if you cycle on and cycle off properly, that there's long-term damage. And that, to this day, as far as I know, is still probably true, except for the fact that with steroids, you get a psychological dependency where you never cycle on and off properly because you build a psychological dependence.
Oh, yeah.
And that I wonder with human growth hormone if there's any of that. I do know that you see actors who are in their 60s looking like they're 30. My guess would be that's probably the results of human growth hormone. And maybe it is better. Maybe there's a way to harness it for all of us. I don't know. But I'm not a doctor. What I am is a sports talk host with hot takes.
Last thought.
Part.
Let's get to this text line right quick because they're blowing up.
I hope I didn't misremember, but this was about Mr. Misrememberer. Didn't Clemens say at first his excuse was the HGH was sent for his wife? Because she was doing a fitness competition.
Oh,
she was doing some type of pageant for fitness or something. That was his excuse at first.
Yeah. Well, whatever.
Seth, let me ask you
looks
this.
like she's 30.
Let me ask you this. So you said that you would probably keep those guys out. And I'm not even arguing with that opinion. Mine has changed, but I respect that. But if they said to you, some guy came, his name was Nick. Nick came in, he's wearing a trench coat, opens it up, it's got some packets in there, and he goes, "Hey, Seth, you're starting out in broadcasting. I'm going to give you these pills. They're illegal, but they won't hurt you. And everyone's doing it. All these new kids that are dumped on the market every year to be a broadcaster, right?
Yes.
Everyone's doing it. You got to take these pills, and you're going to end up being the Bob Costas of your time. Are you taking the pill?"
If I knew there's a chance that I was going to get caught doing it, no.
What if there's protein in it?
Yes.
Okay.
Last point, which probably won't be the last point.
Yeah, the text line is blowing up.
I like to vet and verify.
You did steal, so I don't know if I believe you, but
And I shall replace.
No, it's all right.
Doesn't matter.
I want to know. I need to find the other cat. Is what I need. Go
Roger
ahead.
Clemens' wife. It was HGH because they were on the cover, or they were in that Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. So she wanted to look good for that. That's why she took it back in 2003.
314 chimes in and goes, "Juice them up, give them metal bats. I want to see some home runs, hit the arch, and fall into the river." Damn right. Damn right.
by the way,
Entertain.
you guys didn't know this, but I'm going to tell you about it. It's not definite, but Zobris emailed me. Talkers Magazine wants to put us on the cover, and they want us to do the pose with our shirts off. So if there is HGH,
where is it at? I'm going to starve
Take it
myself.
if you got it. Take it if you got it.
I'm going to starve myself. Guys, Pro Hall of Fame writer Jay Jaffe. No player since 1960 has been elected to the Hall of Fame with under 2,000 hits. Edmonds had 1949, Jim and Crestwood.
That doesn't matter, though.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Look at
He
his
said
Gold
it.
Gloves. Look at his home runs.
I kind of covered that. If you think a guy is close offensively, maybe borderline, and the argument back and forth is fine, but he's the best defensive player at his position of his generation, or tied. I get it that there's other. I don't know who's with Rolen in that generation, but he. I mean, to me, the greatest I ever saw play a lot growing up in New York was Greg Nettles, who gets no love as one of the great all-time defensive third basemen. I saw a lot of Schmidt, who was unbelievable. Rolen was as good as any of them, and a dominant offensive player when he was healthy. So that's how I look at it.
All right.
Don't you think
Go ahead.
that part of the reason with, I guess, utilizing like statistics to recognize defensive prowess is that they're just, I guess there's the fielding Bible, there's defensive run
Are
save.
you talking about Roland's surge
I'm
now?
just saying in general, because
Metrics. And
metrics.
The same thing, has happened for a bunch of guys in Roland's case who never embraced metrics at all. I mean, I think it was his son or a friend of his started explaining how the metrics, which, he was a guy, you hit the ball, you play hard, and the metrics, and there's a ton of them, the sabermetrics really buoy his case, and the more people looked at it.
But is this just now the Hall of Fame of statistics and metrics? I mean, can writers not use their eyes? I mean,
yeah, to me, and I see that a lot, and I'm an old school guy, all right? You don't look at me as some stat geek. To me, it's all pieces of puzzle. Like I don't go by just eye. I get that because you can see certain players and know what this guy can do, and then people are like, well, this one stat is the best. It's a good stat, like people go by OPS or whatever you want to use. It's a great stat. It's telling. But it's just a piece of the puzzle. All of it's just pieces of a puzzle to me.
How about this for an interesting question along the conversation we're having, but also very specific to St. Louis? If I asked you right now, who is a better baseball player, or I threw a text poll, a tweet poll out there, I said, who's a better baseball player overall, Jim Edmonds or Scott Rolen? How do you think that would fall? Is that a crazy question to ask? That Jim Edmonds, first of all, right up there, may actually be better than Scott Rolen.
I think I would take him.
Do it.
first.
So that's
It's
my
close.
point. My point is, and I don't say that to criticize either, the fact that you can have that and it's a legit debate, some folks might even say, yeah, Edmonds is better than Rolen. So we're looking at Rolen, who's trending towards making the Hall of Fame next year, versus Jim Edmonds, not even talked about, falling off the ballot.
I don't get it.
It doesn't make any sense.
don't
Well,
get
why don't you do it on hot_take Central on
And
our
we'll
Twitter
retweet
account,
it.
and we'll retweet it. Put that bad boy up there. Go ahead, Jimmy.
And also Simmons, by the way, Ted Simmons, when people started taking a fresh look at statistics that weren't readily available, back when he was playing, that led to his surge as well. I mean, stats and the newfangled stats do put a fresh perspective, but to me, they're just pieces of a puzzle.
All right, Big Jimmy D chimes in and goes, Barry Bonds sat back and allowed his friend and trainer, Greg Anderson, to go to prison for more than a year because he refused to testify against him. He is a coward and could have saved him from that, but choose to stay silent and sit on his cheating ass in denial. No way he deserves to be honored. That's Big Jimmy D.
I will say, I think he paid that man, and if there's a best friend of the year, of the decade award, it goes to Greg Anderson, because that man never flipped on Barry Bonds. So I have a feeling that he was taken care of. And I'm not saying that's right, but for that man to never flip on Barry Bonds, that dude was taken care of.
Gino
not
Tenton.
that it's worth a year in prison. I don't know. But to not flip,
Oh,
That's
my
a good
God.
question. Would you spend a year
Italian?
in prison for $15 million?
That was gonna be my lead note. 15.
You would, wouldn't you?
I think I would.
I mean,
year?
if the cots were kind of comfortable, you wouldn't be assaulted at all, and you were going to get 3 squares.
How do you know that, though, Jimmy?
$15 million? Now, if you just said $1 million,
Hell no.
That's a tough decision.
Hell, that's a hell no.
Okay.
$15 million, would you?
$15 million for 1 year in prison?
I'd say no.
Wouldn't you be like...
I would say no. No way. I'm telling you right now. Are you kidding me, Charlie? Are you kidding me? With that hair and those looks when you walk in there, boy, are you kidding? A year?
I'd survive.
Get on with yourself. You come out
You might be on the
different.
menu. You might be on the menu.
You
son.
come out different, bruh.
Listen, you're taking all these things
telling
into
you.
consideration versus 15 million. You're taking all these things into
just letting
consideration
you, Charlie,
versus 15
I don't want
million.
this to happen. We won't see you again.
Listen, you asked me that question. 1 million, I say hell no. 15 million, I start to think.
Jimmy,
Why
what
do
about
I-
100 million and you have to do 6 months in the hole for 100 million? 6 months in the hole.
I'd give it for 100 million. I'd give it a shot.
Hold on a
No
second.
way.
I did just visit, or had a vision of Charlie coming out with his 15 million and a smile on his face, but also wearing lipstick and earrings.
Hold on a second. You just made it worse, though, Cam. I would rather be in the hole than
you
be in
wouldn't.
the general public.
Listen to me. Listen.
Yes.
You
Did you
are.
ever see the movie Papillon?
I've seen Shawshank Redemption
Listen to
and
me,
all that.
Charlie.
Being
Do
alone
you
with my
realize what
thoughts.
that would do to you, your psyche? Do you realize you being in the hole?
Do you realize what the other stuff would do?
You wouldn't even care. If you,
Yes,
without
I would.
you wouldn't care about the money because you would be so effed up, be being by yourself for 6 months, freezing cold. You would be a disaster.
Disagree.
Mentally messed up.
Disagree.
And-
Shawshank Redemption, when
Oh,
Andy
get
Dufresne
outta
goes
here.
in after
So,
listening to the
he's a
music,
disaster,
he
too.
said it was the quickest week of his life because he had the music
Oh,
in
get
his
on.
head.
Charlie.
We're gonna have to break, but I want to also.
Charlie, get on
Can
with
someone
yourself.
on the text line answer this for me? Because I'm going to throw this out because this could be the hot takeiest hot take.
Yeah, you had
yet.
a hot one today.
Papillon was a better movie than Shawshank Redemption.
I don't know what Papillon is.
Well, get.
Get it. I'm gonna YouTube that bad boy. Gino Chad's gonna go 15 million. I'm paying the biggest guy in there $1 million when he's out.
That's a great point.
You do $1 million, he's gonna want 2. Then you give him 2, he's gonna want 3. Then what? Get on.
Let me ask
you guys are so aloof.
Installments.
Have you ever? You talk about big stars. Who was in that? You ever heard of Steve McQueen?
Damn right. He was a stud back
You
in the
ever
day.
hear
yeah.
of Dustin Hoffman?
Yeah, baby.
Okay, those
Okay.
are the stars
Okay.
of Papillon.
Here's what you do. You pay the biggest dude who runs the show in prison. You pay somebody on the outside, his family. You pay him $100,000 at the end of every month. And at the end of every month, your family member gets the $100K. There's incentive to keep you alive and keep you safe. And then at the end, you give him a little extra sprinkle at the end.
Jimmy D. Charles would be the Brucey from the longest yard.
This is what like Charlie's like.
I don't even know who that is, but it's funny.
Charlie tells his family, "Look, I got a deal. It's all good."
It's all good.
And then day one,
Hey, don't worry.
Day one, he gets assaulted.
These guys don't
Guaranteed.
They're trustworthy in
guys,
here.
I thought we had a deal. Guys,
Charlie, you get on with yourself. They'd be like, "Oh, come on in, sweet prince."
15 million.
you're a
50
gladiator.
million.
You might be able to survive.
No
in there.
way. No. Nope.
You join
no.
a gang.
And you got.
first. Hey,
well, that's
you
what
join the gang.
Well, which
even
one
if
you
you don't
joining?
agree with their principles.
Now you're just marked.
Here's what I do.
They shave your head
no,
so
it's
fast.
just like back in the day in college. If you joined a frat, you would go to the different frats. What do they call that?
I didn't do it.
Rush.
I didn't do
You
it.
go to Rush and you see which frat is for you. First day of prison, I go to the different gangs and I say, "What can you offer me?
Hi, I'm Charlie.
And do you-
can we
and-
talk?
And you,
Whatever you want me to tattoo
I
on my
went Five Guys
body,
at Fans.
I will do it."
do you think it's like career day?
It is.
Here's the guys from Toledo gang. They seem nice. Here's the former sports talk host
Oh, my
gang.
God.
Oh, I could fit in with those guys
Whichever
too.
gang I feel like has what it takes to really survive and be the strongest gang for the next year. That's who I'm investing in.
And it might be. Which do you think? You think it'd be the former sports talkers or the guys from Toledo?
Dude,
gang?
I could pay a couple gangs off, right? I could work them against each other.
And they would take care of you because they're men of their word. That's the
For
hilarious
money?
part.
I'm
guys
telling
like
you,
you
dude.
that think, no, I'm safe. I cut a deal with these guys.
So it is
Right.
so
No,
funny that
you
you think
pay
that way.
them. You pay them. Why
Charlie,
do all those gangsters get taken care
Charlie.
of in prison?
they will love you in there.
Why do they all get taken care of?
They're gangsters. They know the gangsters. They know how to talk to the gangsters. You've been sheltered. They.
I have
oh my
not been
God.
sheltered.
Oh my
I
God.
pay off the right
We've
people.
all been
I pay off the
sheltered.
guards.
Let's
I pay
just-
off the guards.
We've all
Let's
been
just say-
sheltered.
You tell me Epstein, when he died, the guards didn't kind of take a couple bucks. I pay the guards.
Oh God.
All right, let me just tell you.
This is
Just-
easy. I'll do it now for $10
Oh,
million.
let
I
me
just
get this.
convinced
Let me get.
myself.
The, go ahead.
You're
Jimmy,
going
let
to
me
pay
get
a
this
lot of
text.
guys, and then you're going to be really popular come shower time.
Oh my God, he would.
I pay to
Oh
not
my
be
God, he
popular.
would.
I pay to not be popular.
Charlie,
I give
no
up about
shipping
5.
day.
You'll lose money and you'd be popular.
I would not be.
Let me
Guys,
get this.
we had a deal.
Let me get this text. Cam, I'm a therapist who's worked with guys coming out of prison. Isolation ruins some guys, but for some guys who are emotionally and mentally strong, they come out of it okay. Now, if I'm evaluating you,
I'm very mentally strong.
Well, I don't know. How do you know? You've never been
Because
in
I
a
know.
situation like this.
You never know.
You never know.
You don't know if you could kill somebody. No one knows until they're in that
Exactly.
situation. I agree with Cam.
Man.
You don't know. You might think I'm mentally tough, and you just don't know until you're tested.
Junior high, we had a bunch of kids running around pretending to be Crips and Bloods.
Jeez Louise.
I survived. I thrived.
I mean, come on. It is an interesting
You are the
discussion to
greatest.
talk about.